Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex Glidewell. I am a senior psychology major here at the university, and today I'll be discussing my research under Dr. Francis Connors in the Department of Psychology on the role of syntax in reading comprehension in Down syndrome. So before we get started, I'm going to give a brief overview of what we're going to be discussing today. So first and foremost, I'm going to give some background on our research. We'll be looking at Down syndrome as a disorder, as well as some previous literature on reading comprehension in Down syndrome. Then we're going to be discussing the current study, so the study's methods, its participants, as well as my role in the study. And then last, we're going to be looking at the future of the study, so the direction we're taking from here until in the near future, as well as the implications of our research. So first and foremost, it's important to understand what Down syndrome is. It's a neurodevelopmental disorder that is caused by a mutation in chromosome 21. Now, this is most often called trisomy 21, in which an extra chromosome at 21 is present during development in the zygote. This developmental disorder affects around 200,000 individuals in the US, and it's because of the mutation, it varies in how it's presented. So the three major subtypes of Down syndrome are non-disjunction. This is classical trisomy 21. This is where, again, an extra chromosome is available or is present at the 21st site in the sequence. Translocation is this subtype has a presentation of part of one chromosome, 21, attaches to another chromosome. So the zygote has trisomy 21 or partial trisomy 21, and all cells are affected. And the last major subtype is mosaic Down syndrome. A fraction of the cells are affected. The zygote itself is normal, but the distribution of chromosome 21 is abnormal. So some cells are perfectly normal, while the others have trisomy 21. Now, the features of Down syndrome are important to consider as well. There are obviously some physical abnormalities that are present in individuals with Down syndrome. These include almond-shaped eyes that slant upwards. These have shorter necks, larger tongues, but these physical abnormalities kind of differ and vary among individuals. It's more important to note the cognitive deficits. Generally, these individuals have IQs below an average of 70. And they also have a large range of deficits in social interactions, as well as intelligence and academic performance, including reading comprehension. So when discussing skills in reading comprehension, this study references the simple view of reading model that was proposed by Goff and Tunmer in 1986. Now, this model proposes that reading comprehension is the summation of two major skills: word identification, which is the ability to recognize printed word, and language comprehension, the ability to understand the meaning behind the printed word. But this study kind of extends this model a little bit, and we add a third important skill, cognitive processing. It's believed that certain things such as attentional control, verbal memory, and even processing speed play a role in reading comprehension abilities. We also further look at sub-skills within the word identification and language comprehension skills, including phonological and orthographic skills. That's essentially recognizing word sounds and proper spellings of words, as well as language comprehension, vocabulary, the network of words that you already understand and know, as well as syntax, the rules that govern the way we build sentences and phrases. So with that in mind, we'll look at some previous work. So we found some relative strengths and relative weaknesses among Down syndrome individuals when it comes to reading comprehension. Major skills include word identification. Dr. Connors has previous work in this field, as well as some orthographic, so being able to recognize proper spellings, as well as visual sequential memory, so being able to remember things that have been seen already and sequences. However, there are some relative weaknesses. Syntax is a major mediator that has been found to be a deficit in reading comprehension, as well as reading comprehension as a whole, so this overarching skill. And working memory has also been found to be a weakness in this regard. So what we found is a major disconnection. So looking back at the extended model, we see that vocabulary, that would be our word identification ability, is relatively strong in these individuals, but syntax and reading comprehension as a whole are relative weaknesses. So we want to kind of explore this disconnection, and that's where we come to the current study. So we have two major aims in our study. A, to determine the key components of reading comprehension in Down syndrome. So identifying the key strengths and weaknesses based on the extended model and simple model. And we hypothesize that Down syndrome participants will support this simple view of reading, but will better support this extended model with these more addressed skills. Aim 2 of this study is to test the hypothesis that poor syntax specifically limits reading comprehension in Down syndrome. So by matching these participants on word identification skills, we are trying to understand if reading comprehension and syntax specifically is what limits this ability in these individuals. Now, we hypothesize that reading comprehension for Down syndrome, these skills will be lowered comparatively, but specifically that syntax will be the major mediator between group and ability. So the methods of this study, we work on face-to-face, one-on-one testing sessions with participants. These are average about 2 hours, and these span 2 different sessions. Session 1, we generally establish rapport with our participants, address any questions families might have, and start preliminary testing. Session 2 finishes out these testings, and after Session 2, participants are rewarded for their time with us. These sessions are also attended by 2 researchers generally. This is not always the case, but essentially 2 researchers are present. One actually conducts the testing, and the other checks for validity across measures. So our participants are ideal range of participants is about 70 participants with Down syndrome, 40 with intellectual disability, and 40 typically developing. Now, typically developing intellectual disability participants, these are going to be used in our comparative study, so our AIM 2, while Down syndrome will be used in both AIM 1, AIM 2, addressing those strengths and weaknesses, as well as using them in comparison. This is the essential list of our materials. This is a breakdown. So the first 4 measures we use are within Session 1. The rest are in Session 2. I won't be going through every single one of these because that's quite a lot. But most of these measures are standardized, well-established measures for reading skill abilities. So my role as a tester, I do a role as a tester. So I actually engage in these one-on-one interactions with participants and collect data. But aside from that, outside of testing, I also clean up data and score previous participants' measures to make sure that we have data to work with. And then I also engage what's called cross-site scoring. I work with our sister site in Nebraska on agreement of scoring and answers, accuracy among scoring, as well as compliance with protocols when it comes to testing. So the future of our study, we're looking at, currently we're still in data collection and scoring, but when it comes to the spring, by April we look at trying to end data collection and focus on data cleanup and scoring of participants' measures. And in the future we look at sending off our data for data analysis and writing up results. And lastly, just the implications of this study, we want to address strengths and weaknesses when it comes to reading comprehension, and we want to garner a better understanding of reading comprehension. It's an essential skill that plays an important role in everyday life. So we have a better understanding of this skill, we can build better interventions and be able to teach reading to these individuals better and hopefully promote better autonomy in these individuals' lives. Any questions?
You showed us on one of the slides a list of measures. Which measures do you work with in specific, and can you tell us about your experience with working with them?
Right. So looking here at the materials, I generally work with these materials here, hearing and vision, Worm 3, and LIDAR. I'm essentially collecting data on nonverbal intelligence with the LIDAR measure, as well as collecting data on word identification, which is really important for matching participants when it comes to analysis eventually. And then I also work with Worm, which measures reading comprehension, which is, again, just the overarching question behind our study.
What does this study address that hasn't been previously addressed in research regarding Down syndrome and reading comprehension?
Right. So one of the major innovations of this study is the fact that it looks at syntax as a specific mediator for reading comprehension skills. Now we have addressed that there's a lot of weaknesses amongst these individuals, but no study previously has delved into specific skills such as this, as well as looking at syntax as a major mediator on ability and predictor.
Why were the specific age ranges for the participant groups chosen?
So going back to that slide, these age ranges were chosen specifically to address two issues. So number one, these were ID and Down syndrome were chosen and matched to kind of assess ability on some of these skills and kind of mediate the idea that they're not, that weaknesses and strengths are not symptom or disorder specific. So to test whether ID was doing as well or even worse than Down syndrome and assessing like which skills that these two individuals work on. As for typically developing, this is generally the age range that is considered to be on par or have the similar ability to Down syndrome. And this is also to address issues of if Down syndrome were to do better in some of these scores, is it due to age and experience? Or if they're doing worse than, could this be an indicator of ability issues or deficits?